Waiting to see if anybody shows up. And we'll either be live for a bit or I'll end it because everybody's busy. I'm eating my last couple pieces of licorice. Hello, Patty. I was supposed to go live yesterday, and then I didn't. Hi, kitty. Because I was just a lazy slug. So it was, I'd been out of town for a week, out in the heat. I was outside in really, really hot, and the Airbnb I was in didn't have air conditioning. And then my car's air conditioning decided to stop working. So it was a whole lot of heat for this fat old lady to be in all the time. So this week, other than the day that I went and visited Melissa and Marnie on Wednesday, I was like sleeping all the time. Good morning, Martine in Australia, and hello to Natasha. So, Francisco, there is nothing new on Stephen's case. We're still waiting on Judge Flowers. I know there's been some discussion and gossip. Carol Ann Fitzgerald posted today about at some point somebody requesting pictures. I haven't looked at it because, again, I've been lazy. So, but all right, my visit with Marnie and Melissa. Both of them talked to me about things going on in their prison. Now, their prison is, there was a Washington Post article about their prison that I posted. Sorry, that was a dog. Because she just devoured a bone. Their prison was in the Washington Post for an incident that happened years ago. And so I brought that up to them because they were both at the prison at that time. And I visit with them separately. So they're not talking at the same time. But so they both knew exactly where this happened at, so they were even pointing to me which building it was in, that it was 11. That is the first housing unit when you go into the prison, because their prison isn't just a big, huge building. It's tons of buildings, so each little housing unit holds X amount of rooms in it. So this number 11 is the first one. And so they said that's where they'll do the training at. And so it was Marnie who said to me she will never live in that one because she knows that's the one that's constantly made an example of. So again, this was years ago, and what they did during a training, and Marnie said they do these things too on that housing unit. It'll be a surprise. People don't know that it's coming, that it's this shakedown thing, make example of. And so they took all these women and lined them up and made them take all their clothes off. And I get it. I know somebody here in gossip had said, well, you're in prison and you have to be searched. I get it. I get searches. I get drugs, looking for drugs and looking for weapons and that kind of stuff. But the way this was done is dehumanizing. And how are you rehabilitating somebody when you're going to treat them like an animal? So they did things where they stripped these women down. And typically only women officers will strip search the women, not the men. They keep the women and the men separate from that type of thing. But this was men lined up and saying things to them like, bend over, I want to see the pink. They were making the women pull their tampons out. And then as they're bent over, they had to spread their lips apart to make sure there wasn't anything else up there. Now, again, if this is one thing that you're being done one-on-one in a room, it's whatever. But this was, you're in a room full of other people who are also naked being subjected to this, and then a row of men that are watching it and hooting and hollering and saying a whole bunch of stuff. Bullshit. That is bullshit. And so both girls told me there is a new director at the prison. It's somebody who came from, I think they said Ohio, and they have a military background. And so they are trying to run that prison, you know, like the military, and is cracking down. And you have to understand that this prison has max, but there's also people who don't need to be locked down like that and taking away everything. And you really have to look at, is this rehabilitation or not? Is it rehabilitation or punishment or both? Because they're doing things now like you're not allowed to have anything up on the walls, ripping everything down. So like when you have girls that are good artists and they draw stuff that's really pretty and it was hanging up, no, they took that down. Pictures of your family in your cell, no, they're going to rip that down. Marnie, she probably doesn't want me saying this, so it's just between you and I. Marnie now has hearing aids, so she is marked as hearing impaired. And so there was a sign outside of her room saying hearing impaired, so people will know that's ripped down. There's a laundry schedule, you know, of when you can go do your laundry, you know, which house or whatever gets it, you know, just to keep things straight and trying to cause as little issues as possible. That's ripped down. Makes no sense that they can't have stuff hanging on the walls. They sleep on, you know, those little mattresses. They're able to buy through commissary mattress pads. That's just like that egg carton, you know, foam thing. And so many of the women have a bunch of those now that they've paid for. All right. This isn't something taxpayer dollars, blah, blah, blah. Because, you know, these mattresses that they're supplied with are horrible. And if you have an older inmate, or, I mean, well, I'm old, but I'm not elderly, I guess. I have degenerative disc disease. I got a serious back issue. Oh my God, if you made me sleep on that stuff, I'm going to be in pain. And so now the new guy is saying that they're going to take away all their mattress pads. Then the next thing that's happening is they're provided with, you know, so they have a box, certain size box. They're now being told that all of their belongings have to be able to fit in that box. And if you have anything more than that, it's got to go. So like when the visit just on Wednesday, Marnie sent me home with a box of stuff to give to her dad, you know, so she doesn't have to pay to ship it. And it's just, I think it's like books and magazines and such. So, but like Marnie in particular she's like, yeah, I'm not putting my shoes in the same box as my food, because Marnie doesn't eat in the chow hall. Or is it Melissa? I can't, you know, so they're living off of what they buy with their own money off of commissary. So they're being told everything they have has to be able to fit in this box and be in the box. So for Melissa, that's not as big a deal. Melissa is a clean freak, you know, and she says that people joke at the prison that her place is like the hospital ward, you know, of how clean she and her roommate keep it. Melissa's in a room that there's only 2 people in. So she's only got one bunkie, whereas Marnie is in a room where there's 4 of them. So there's 2 bunk beds in her room. So they're being told that. And now they told me that, and this is where I'm gonna freak out. And it's where my political activism comes into play here, and why when I was told this, I'm livid, and if it happens, I'm going to organize a protest or something. They want the inmates always walking in 2s with their shoulders touching and their heads down. Oh, hell to the no. I am a handmaid that fights for women's reproductive rights. Let's not fight about it. We're not going to get into the politics of it. But as a handmaid, we have to walk in 2s with our heads down. No, you're not doing that to women in a prison. I get wanting to have some order, but in the way that is being handled, it's again just trying to drag those women down and keep them down. How are we rehabilitating them if you treat them like that? Oh, that infuriates me. Let me scroll and see if you guys have any comments before I go into something else. Connie says, I'm watching the Netflix documentary of Stephen, part 2. Very informative. Yeah, it is good. And I'm in one of those episodes, to sound like a douchebag right now. So see if you can find me. And hello, Carol Ann. And Connie's in Michigan. Natasha says, oh my God, I was reading that. So horrifying. Christina said, loved your live the other day on Marnie. And Connie says, he is innocent. Marnie. So I did a live the other day with Tammy so Tammy started a book publishing company called Words Matter Publishing. And then from that, she had published some books that are, injustices. And so she then spread Words Matter Publishing into WMP Justice Review. So for the last 3 years, she has put together this team that's been working on Marnie Yang's case. So a new person has recently been added to Marnie's team. So the filing has to be put off again to get this new person up to speed, which made Marnie sad, but she also gets it, so she's like, it's just another 9 weeks. And she's like, I've done 10 years. What's another 10 weeks? So by the end of September, we should be able to talk about Marnie's case. And I get it that it's frustrating for y'all because everything out there on Marnie is she's guilty. I had reservations about it when I was first asked about it and when I was looking the stuff up because it's bad. But now that I've seen the other side, she's absolutely innocent. And if she was guilty, I would tell you as such because and I said this to Marnie to her face too, is, what's it to me? Yes, I visit Marnie now, but prior to that, it's like, I don't know her. She's not family. She wasn't a friend. So what do I care if she's guilty or innocent? I'm going to just look at the facts and call it like I see it. And it's all there. So just hang on for that. And Tammy just expanded again. So there is the WMP Citizen Investigators. And so that has come about because of what people have done in Stephen's case, in being able to find things that his, Kathleen Zellner did not see, things that Carol Ann sent to Kathleen. So, maybe there's people who can look at the evidence in Marnie's case and see something with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective. or just are able to think of things that the other people who have been looking over this case over and over for the last 3 years that they just missed. So you have to go to the Marnie Yang website first. Is it marnieyang.org? I don't remember. Let me see if I can pull it up on the other screen. marnieyang.org. Whoops, typo. Is that it? Nope. Is it marnieyang.com? Yes. All right. So on marnieyang.com, let me post a link here unless Christy is here and has done it already. You have to go up top here next to home and click on CI group. Here, let me post the link for that. So you then have to register. Let me see. Let me click on register. I've never looked at this before. Okay. So you have to register, and then it's $10 to join. And so once you've paid this $10, let me go to here. After you've paid the $10, Tammy will see it. And then you go to the Facebook group and can click to join that, and she'll approve you. But it's only after you've paid the $10 can you get in. So I'm an admin on it, so I can see right now that there's 16 people who want to join. Let me see if there's anybody in here that I recognize their name out of these. Well, oh, Tanya Henry. Dawn Ferguson. Let's see. I can click on ones in common. So there's Judith McKenzie, who's just in Stephen Avery Project, not in Gossip. Jamie Lecky Gorgon is only in Stephen Avery Project. Tina McFall, oh, she's in all the groups. Okay, Debbie, she's somebody I went to high school with. Rita Corner, she's okay, and Bree Robson, and Catherine McGuire Richards, Angela Brown McDougall, Tammy Rockwell, Peggy McDaniel, Ann Miller. Hey, stop it. Hey, Mallory, shut your pie hole. So you have to pay that $10 first through the website before she'll approve you for the Facebook group. The $10 is used to go towards the team of experts that Tammy has put together that is currently working on Marnie's case, and Tammy is working on a couple others. And so the goal is that the Justice Review team will be able to take X amount of cases per year where, you know, trust me, these experts, because I sat in a round table with them for a weekend, they're brilliant. You know, lie detector expert, ballistics expert, the Secret Service guy. I mean, so now if we're able to bring in money this way through the CI group, plus we're going to get your help on solving these cases. And then also there's the book, My Mom Marnie. Riley. Oh, Riley. Funny. So the My Mom Marnie book, money from this will go towards helping in Marnie's case. And yeah, it's $10. You know, I know people have said that that's too low. So it is talked about that maybe in a year we'll up it, or maybe in a couple months we'll up it. But you get in there first, and you're going to get in for only the $10. But it's no different than when you're going to help a case and you're giving money to a GoFundMe, right? But this way, we're actually giving you something for that $10 instead of you just throwing money at a case. That now you're going to get inside information. Tammy's been posting in here pictures from the day of the murder. Some graphic. She posted the 911 calls the day of the murder, and there are some other things that will be posted. Like when I just visited with Marnie wants the police reports posted. So she said she was going to talk to Tammy because she's got specific police reports she would want up. And we can't put anything up that's going to hurt her filing. That isn't going to be the end of September. You know, you got to keep your cards close, right? You don't want the state to know what you got and give them more time to counter it. So, but a police report, Carol Ann can FOIA it, you know, that's public. So police reports will go up eventually, but Tammy has a specific order that she wants things released. She wants it put in such and such a way. So she's keeping on top of it and, you know, posting stuff. And Marnie loves the feedback so far. She said that she really likes that people, the word Marnie used was taking a clinical approach to it. You know, that because Marnie is like super intelligent, really, really smart, you know. So she really likes that people aren't just, it's not just like true crime fans or whatever that sometimes say ridiculous things, that people are actually looking at this stuff like evidence and talking about it in that way, not being so, you know, drama. And Marnie is going to be writing a letter to her supporters that Tammy will be posting like every Sunday. So there's already the one posted from last week. When I visited Marnie, she said she was actually writing next week's post before I visited. And she gave me a little preview on what the next one is going to be about. So in the CI group, you will be getting regular messages from Marnie. And then at some point, we'll be doing a live where Marnie will call me and we'll put her on speaker and you'll be able to talk to Marnie. So just obviously, you know, there's things that can't be discussed and you're not going to be able to, you know, if you try, you know, we'll just cut it off. So because bottom line, we have to protect, you know, the wrongfully accused. So we're not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize their chance, you know, their chance at freedom. How did Marnie word this? Because she talked about, you know, the saying that God doesn't give you any more than you can handle. And she said, because Marnie is Jewish, and so she said when she saw her rabbi that week, he was asking her, you know, that she's now been in prison for 10 years for something she didn't do. What does she think God's plan was for her and why she's there? And so Marnie feels like this was not only to better herself, but also for her to help others. Because Marnie is a teacher She teaches English and math to the inmates in there. And she puts her all into it. And she's very proud of when she gets them to pass their tests, and, you know, that she's trying to help these women for when they get out. So she thinks, you know, so if you're a believer in that kind of thing, that is her purpose, you know, that she is going to help others. Let me scroll again. Because I've talked for a while. Carol Ann says, I've been trained in strip searches, never actually used a prisoner. You just need to be told how to do it and given tips. This is completely wrong. Oh, that is interesting to know, Carol. Thank you. You're right. It's humiliation. I'm appalled at it. You know, and something I had said to somebody in Gossip when they were on the other side, and I'm like, well, think of, you know, I get it if people don't know who Marnie and Melissa are, but the bulk of the people here in Gossip, well, everybody is here initially because of Stephen. How would you like if that was being done to Stephen or Brendan? You know, that you believe they're innocent. But I go one further. Even if they're guilty, that's not right to treat them like that. Jeffrey says, exactly. I think the system forgets prison is about rehab. These people are released eventually, so have rights to be treated like a human. Would we treat people like this on the outside? Right. So, and that's why I say, what is it? Is this rehabilitation? Punishment. But even with punishment, if these people have sentences, because a lot of people at the prison with Marnie and Melissa, you know, Marnie has a life sentence. Melissa got 30 years, right? There's people in there that are only there for 8 months, right? They're coming and going. And you're treating them like that. It's, you know, so then you're making it so they have no trust of the system and of law enforcement. And, you know, it's just not right. And Stephen's case is what totally changed me on our whole system. I used to be for the death penalty. Now I'm against it, because how do you know that these people are truly guilty? You know, I need it to be concrete. You can't just, you know, so what if Stephen was put to death for Penny Bernstein? You know? So you should be doing things so they can get themselves on their feet when they're out. But the way the whole system is, like, did you know that if you go to prison on something involving a murder, that you then go on a murder list, like if you're a pedophile, that you have to register once you're out, at least here in the States, and you have to do that for X amount of years. So if you are at some spot other than your home for a certain period of time over this set date, you then have to register. But it's, you served your time. And now you're free, but you're still being treated or still being punished. You know, so to me, that's no different than a parent at home during the day and your child does something, and then it's you know, you punish them, you know, put them in a timeout or whatever you're going to do. And then it's, you wait till the other one comes home, and then that one punishes too. That's not right. Hi, Fabian in Germany. Jeffrey says, is this government run or by a private company? Well, we have government prisons and we have profit prisons. Melissa and Marnie are in a government prison. Carol Ann said, sounds to me like a human rights lawyer needs to do a pro bono on these issues. I don't know what the result of it was. I know I posted that article. So, if this is currently going through the courts or if the inmates lost, I don't know. Victoria says, why are they in this prison? Don't know the story of the girls. Sorry. So Marnie Yang, both Marnie and Melissa have been in prison for 10 years. Their alleged crimes happened in the same county, and they do have a certain police officer, George Falenko, who is entwined in both of them, but their cases are completely separate. These girls know of each other because of being in prison, but they're not friends or anything like that. Marnie is in prison because she had been, I don't know if you call it dating, Sean Gale. Sean Gale was a Chicago Bear. That's a American football team that here in Illinois in 1985 was their big, huge season, and they won the Super Bowl in January of 86. And so the Chicago Bears from that season are like gods here. And Sean Gale is one of them. Sean Gale is a womanizer. At that time, he had 18 girls that he was dating, which basically just means, you know, a stable of women he had sex with on the regular. Marnie was business partners with him. They had real estate deals together. And then Marnie was also having sex with him. She would break up with him all the time, but since they're in business together, you know, she said, I was talking to her about it this week because, like I said, Marnie is super intelligent. And so why would she be with Sean Gale? Because she was with him for what, like 15 years or something? A long time. She said she had low self-esteem. And also, she's somebody who likes her privacy, that she wants to be alone. So even while she was having this relationship with Sean Gale, she also had a boyfriend for several years. And then she would dump him because he would want to be like exclusive and want to be with her all the time, and she's like, oh no, I need my space, that type of thing. So she's like one of those that you know, she wants to be in a relationship, but she like doesn't want to live together. You know, she's got no need for marriage, any of that. So that's why she would be with Sean for so long. And plus he emotionally manipulated her. And so Sean at that time had 18 girls, and Ronnie Ryder was what was thought to be his longest one. They had been together for 18 years, but now it turns out there's a woman who was with him even longer than Ronnie. And Ronnie was 7 months pregnant with Sean's baby. But Sean hates kids, doesn't want kids, doesn't want to be tied down to one woman, obviously 18 years, that he's, or 18 girls, doesn't want to pay. Because he also, he was this Super Bowl Chicago Bear. He made a lot of bad deals. He wasn't a millionaire. He didn't have a bunch of money. And he would make all those women that if they did go out with him places, they paid their own way. So it wasn't even like he was a sugar daddy. So Ronnie was 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant. She had originally hid her pregnancy from Sean because she had aborted 2 previously that were Sean's. So she hid her pregnancy so Sean couldn't make her have an abortion. So now she was 7 months pregnant, you know, so she didn't let him know until she's past the point of having an abortion. So now, because it is not legal, I don't care what anybody says, what headlines you see, where you see it, you cannot have an abortion here in the States up to term. There is certain week, and you cannot have an abortion after that unless there's something medically wrong that is going to kill the woman. And that's why, but we're not going to get into that. So Ronnie was 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant, whatever it was, and she was shot to death. And they eventually took Marnie down for this as being one of his girls. And there's a lot to it. And then Melissa Kaluzinski. So Melissa, you can look up her case she's on YouTube. If you look up Melissa Kaluzinski, that's Calusinski. She was on her case was on 48 Hours. There's 2 episodes, one called Blaming Melissa, and the other one is The Fight for Melissa. And Kathleen Zellner is in those because Kathleen Zellner represents Melissa. She does not represent Marnie. Marnie has a different lawyer. His name is Jed Stone. And there's nothing you can Google or YouTube on Marnie that's going to tell you the real story. But the 48 Hours episodes on Melissa, those are good. So go ahead and watch those. So Melissa worked at a daycare with her sister, Crystal. And so she was in the toddler room, and Ben Kingham was 16 months old. I've told you guys a million times, I'm really bad with numbers. So every number you've heard, don't hold me to it. He was in a bouncy chair on the floor, and Melissa turned and looked at him, and he was like turning colors and foaming. And so she called for help, and her sister Crystal came in to do CPR, and ambulance arrived and brought Ben to the hospital, and he was pronounced dead. And Melissa was interrogated for, don't hold me to the number, 70 something hours, something like that. She said X amount of times that she didn't do anything. She didn't do anything. Melissa has a low IQ, and they eventually, it's like Brendan Dassey. She, eventually it's like, we know it was an accident, just say it was an accident, and, this all be fine. And so she thought she would just say, okay, she dropped him on the ground, and then she was going to go home. And she's been in prison ever since. In Melissa's case, the state, they doctored evidence. They doctored an x-ray, and then when Kathleen Zellner, because Kathleen Zellner didn't represent her initially, so now Kathleen Zellner has the real x-rays. And so everything that the people testified to, the coroner or whatever, and saying that there was a crack in his skull and there was bleeding and they felt the crack. Well, now when you get the actual x-ray, there's none of that. So they lied. So Melissa, there's a hearing scheduled for her that's like August 14th. Kathleen filed recently for Melissa a writ of habeas corpus, so trying to get her released on this new evidence or new trial. So it's been continued. So August 14th should be no excuses. So we get the next step in Melissa's case. In Marnie's case, it's been
unknown caller.
It's been 3 years of investigating for Marnie, and they'll be filing soon. And it was supposed to be filed earlier, and it keeps getting put off because trying to have everything you need to make sure, before you fire this off. All right, so let me read. Jeffrey says, what century are we talking about? Carol says, the military and quasi-military are not all that female friendly, if you get what I mean. Yes, understood, Carol. Julie says, I went to the Averys and had a wonderful visit with the family. Stephen called while we were there. Very excited to talk with him. Took several pictures. Best day ever. Well, that's nice. Debbie says, Marnie is 100% innocent. Debbie, I know that Tammy and Marnie both have really appreciated both yours and Miley's comments, your contributions so far in the CI group. So thank you so much. Tanya, I'd be very interested in what you have to say about Marnie's book, because I know you're somebody who looks at the wrongfully accused cases from looking at the facts, that you're not looking at the drama. So I'd be very interested in what you think after you read the book. But the thing to remember about this book that just got released, okay? This book, My Mom Marnie, is not Marnie's story. This is her kid's story. These two, whoops, wrong way, this way. Those two are twins and were 16 at the time. And then the other one, wrong way, I'm so bad at that, was 12. So this book goes into what was done to them by law enforcement. And I've only met her daughter, Emily. Her daughter is a really sweet girl, really smart, too, just like her mom. But what was done to these kids to manipulate them and try to get them to speak against their mother when they knew that she was home the time this crime was allegedly committed, and what those kids were put through. That's what that book is about. It is not Marnie's story. I know somebody in Gossip complained about that at some point when I had posted the link on how to purchase this book. It's not Marnie's story. It's her kid's story. There is a book being written on Marnie's story. Obviously not out yet. It's not done being written, and it wouldn't come out until after that filing. Because, you know, like I've said, you can't put that stuff out there yet. Okay, there's me posting the links. Carol Ann says, I might join later in the year. I'm juggling a few things at the moment and don't have time to spare.